slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
All right, we have a fantastic guest on today. We're excited to talk to Coach. We're gonna have Coach talk about his background as a coach. Quickly, briefly, bringing people up to date. Coach was let go of his head coaching job at Park Ridge, and the quick summary was that he wanted guys in the off season to be able to come in and work out in the off season if they weren't playing another sport. So, which kind of is par for the course for almost every football program in the country. But Park Ridge administration seemed to have an issue with it, and maybe a parent or two. I'm not sure. I'm sure that may have been part of it. I'll let Coach talk more about that. And then they decided to part ways with him, with that under Coach's understanding being the main factor of that. But before we dive into that, I want Coach to really give his coaching background, and really, because he's been around a long time, as a coach, as an assistant for a long time, for some great programs, and really has a great reputation as a football coach, in North Jersey. So, Coach, if you can go through your background, and talk about that. We have obviously Coach's name is Coach James Cleary. I'll let you go from there, Coach.
Sure. Thank you for having me on. Good morning. I've been a high school history teacher and football coach for 30 years. I've been lucky to learn from some of the best high school football coaches in the state as an assistant. I began my career in 1996 at Dickinson High School in Jersey City. I then had the opportunity. I went to Keyport High School in the Shore Conference. I learned for 2 years under Coach Ciccatelli, who
baby.
Yeah, a great experience. I was there for 2001, 2002. So I was there with Kenny Catouche, J.J. Beadle. We won the sectional championship, the Group 1 Central sectional championship with some great teams. So I learned from him. Then I had the opportunity to come up north here to Bergen County under Brooks Alexander, who was my offensive coordinator the past year. I worked with him at Pascack Hills, where I still do teach for 6 years. Then I was at Waldwick as the head coach there for 2 years. And then I had the opportunity to go to Pascack Valley and learn from Craig Nielsen, where I was the defensive coordinator there for 8 years, in which we had some unbelievable teams. We went to 3 sectional finals in a row. We won 2. I was living in Bloomfield at the time. I got a chance to work with Mike Carter as his defensive coordinator, which
one of the greatest.
Yes, he is. He's a great man. I learned so much from Coach Carter. I then had the opportunity to come back to Bergen County. My wife and I moved to Park Ridge. I was asked to be the defensive coordinator at Park Ridge. I did that for 2 years. And then last year was my first year as the head coach. So I have a ton of experience. I learned from some great coaches how to run a program, and really some unbelievable mentors like Coach Carter, Coach Nielsen, Coach Ciccatelli. So I felt I was ready to build a championship program.
Coach,
those are some powerful names.
Talk about after being head coach and then kind of going through it, and then you get into the off season. Talk about kind of what your expectations were, and then as you kind of communicated it to the parents and the administration, and then what they kind of brought back to you.
Yeah. Well, this year, I loved coaching the kids. I loved the kids. I loved the town. This is our home. My wife and I, we have 2 daughters in the Park Ridge public school system. This year it was a tough year. We had to replace 9 starters on both sides of the ball. We had an outstanding senior class that graduated. But, I felt the boys were all in. I laid out all of my expectations. We started an in-season weightlifting program, which I haven't done. We required the boys to work out 3 times a week. And gentlemen, the issue is we didn't have a locker room or a weight room. The school's been under construction for 2 years. So we had all our weights in the snack shack by the field, and we would drag them out and work out behind the goalposts 3 times a week or by the picnic tables to make sure that we were lifting. And it was really important to maintain strength all throughout the season. The kids really stepped up. We had a lot of young players. We had 2 freshmen starting. One of our best players was a freshman fullback who's rushing close to 1,000 yards before he got injured. We qualified for the playoffs. We finished 4-4-1. We lost the first round to New Milford. It was a 7-0 game. It's just, we weren't there yet. We didn't have enough experienced players. So I was very excited going into the season. As soon as the season was over, we maxed out everyone to chart all their progress to see where they are after the season and the gains we're going to make throughout the year. When I interviewed for the job, I explained to the administration, all of the kids that weren't working out, weren't playing a winter sport, we were going to create an off-season weightlifting program for them, and we expected them to be there. And they said that was fine, but then when the off-season came around, I was told that I cannot pressure the kids to go to the workouts. If they wanted to go, great. If they didn't, I had to leave them alone. And I disagreed with them. I said, I'm not pressuring them. I'm just trying to help them. I can't accept, if they don't expect to lift weights at all to go into next season, they're putting their health at risk. You have to get bigger and stronger to play high school football. And, I'm very flexible. I understand, hey, something comes up. Coach, I have a test tomorrow. I need to go for extra help. No problem. But I was just asking that we have an open line of communication, and that if they were going to miss the workout, that they would message me. And that's where we disagreed with the administration. The weight room is ready. It's still not equipped. There's no equipment in there. So I was ready for these guys. Once the weather got cold, we couldn't work out outside. So I was taking a bus from Park Ridge at 4:15 every afternoon and coming here to Parseghian Hills to use their weight room after their football team was done. And we would work out here from 4:30 to 5:30, and then I would get back on the bus and go back to Park Ridge with no compensation. There was no stipend. There was nothing. I was doing this on my own time. And I felt if a kid missed and didn't let me know, I would message him and say, hey, Johnny, why weren't you at the workout yesterday?
Right.
And that's where the conflict got in with administration. This happened on a Tuesday. Yeah, it happened on a Tuesday. On Friday, I was called into a meeting, and they called me in. They said, Coach, this isn't always easy. Said, wait a second, you're firing me? And they said, yes. And I'm like, on what grounds? And they told me they felt my expectations were too high. I'd be a better fit at a group 4 or a parochial school. And I was like, gentlemen, I laid this all out to you in the interview process. I put together a portfolio. I explained to you everything that I was going to do. And they said, we felt that I wasn't a good fit, that I was putting too much pressure on the kids. I was being too demanding, and that's not the commitment that they want to make. And I was shocked. I said,
I think most would be shocked, Coach. I think most would kind of be in awe of a situation, like that, especially for the speed at which it happened, right? I mean, it's not like there was some type of, even conversation moving forward of maybe how you could tweak it so that it would work or anything like that. It was kind of just laid on the line, like, hey, this is what it is, and we bid you farewell.
Did they bring you in and ask you to revise it, or did they say, they just came in and brought you in
and said, you're fired? And I said to him, I've been in teaching and coaching for 30 years. This is the first time I've heard of where there was an issue presented to a coach and I wasn't allowed to make any changes.
Right.
I said, I'll make whatever changes you want me to make.
Correct.
You're not giving me a chance to do it. I go, this isn't how this works. I thought this meeting was going to be, Coach, we have an issue with this. Okay, how can we solve that? Let's come up with a plan together. I said, you're not giving me any guidance. You're not giving me any support. There's not any leadership. It's, we don't like you. You're fired. That's pretty much what it was.
Crazy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. They said to me, well, the parents find you unapproachable. I said, well, this is the first time I've heard this. I'll have a parent meeting and address it with the parents. It's come to my attention that some people find me unapproachable. That's not the vibe I want to give off. Here's all my contact information. If you need anything, please reach out to me. And they said, no, it's too far gone by now. I said, how is it too far gone? This is the first time I'm hearing that there's a problem with anything.
Yeah, and I think that's an issue that a lot of coaches deal with today, right? Is that back and forth and the communication where, things are expressed and kind of don't really, it's interesting in how that works, right? Something is relayed to administration, like, literally above your head without you even knowing. And rather than, the administration talk to you and then take that process of communicating with your parents, and that it immediately becomes, one thing and that side of it. And I think a lot of coaches deal with that, and it's an issue, right? Because you're looking for administrators to back you. They hired you for a reason. And especially when you've laid something out within it, you would expect some more support, I guess, from them, rather than now where you see a lot of programs, administrators side with parents over coaches, even though they're the ones that have hired that coach, expecting him to do certain things without communicating kind of or revising certain things. We're supposed to be a team, right? Like everybody has to be aligned and work together. And I think that's a problem a lot of coaches face.
And there should also be a chain of command. I talked to the administration about where's the chain of the command. You can't have, if a player has a problem, if there's an issue, the player needs to go to the coach first. If the player's not satisfied, then the parent needs to contact the coach first. You're completely bypassing all of these steps. And, the parents are making phone calls to the athletic directors and they're making changes without even talking to the coach, bypassing all of those steps.
Did they, was a parent that approached the athletic director? Is that where it kind of stemmed from?
I believe so.
Okay.
When I spoke with the athletic director, I said, well, are there complaints? And he said, yeah, I've had a couple. I said, okay, who's complaining and about what? And he said, well, that's not the issue.
Yeah, you'll never get, that. They're not doing that. No way.
Yeah. So they were like, well, you can't pressure the boys to go to the workouts. If they want to come, they come. If they don't, they don't. And I said, I disagree with you on it. I just want to have a line of communication with the boys why they're missing a workout. And
I think what is, I've been around a long time as a head coach, and I've been through it all, and Derek knows.
And some coach, we've been through it.
Yeah.
I've taken over many programs that were not in the best position possible, and I've had some great ADs and I've had some bad ADs. And the great ADs that I've had have, anytime there was an issue, they brought me in and we talked about it and we figured out a revision. That's what great ADs do. And strong ADs who feel like they're backed, administratively, or even if they didn't feel they were backed, they're just stronger ADs. They would say, hey, listen, let's try and move this. I recommend you either have a team meeting or you have, you call up this parent and address them or so on and so forth. And, and then we move forward. And usually in those situations, everything will be resolved greatly. But the ones that I've had that were not resolved greatly were similar to what happened in your situation, where they already had it in their head that they didn't like something, and there would be nothing that you could do or revise or fix that would get them resolved from that. And that usually was an indication of a weak AD to me, in my opinion. And somebody who just had no interest in trying to make the program work. So by the way, I'm not shocked to hear this, because this is a long time ago, but going back to my very first stint at Saddlebrook, I dealt with some issues like that, exactly what you're dealing with. But the good thing was, for the most part, my ADs tried to work through it. But I can tell you that in the end, I actually walked away because I was tired of dealing with it. So everything had to be revised over and over and over and over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, constant revisions.
Now, my AD at least did talk to me. He did talk to me. You know what I mean? So at least from that standpoint, but the principal wasn't behind it at the time. But I could tell you that it's definitely an issue. What
Now,
What would you
just
have liked-
before one thing, Dave, before you go, a question, and it's to both of you. Do you think this is more of an issue, or is on the level that it's at because it's Group 1, right, where there's less amounts of kids, right? And even Dave, being at a Group 1 or a smaller school setting where that stuff is just so much. I don't know if it's under more of a microscope, I want to say, or maybe there's lack of, just total number of guys. Do you think that plays, and this is kind of for both of you guys, do you think that plays any more type of a role because of that, or no?
Yeah, absolutely. I think not having a large amount of kids played a role in this situation because I feel that they were afraid that maybe the boys would quit if I pushed them too hard, and they don't have a lot of numbers, so they're worried about fielding a team. And I think that definitely had a role in it too. And also, when it comes down to it, the boys know they're starting. We only have 29 kids, so whether I come to the weight room every day or not, I'm going to be the starting guard because we just don't have anybody else.
I think that's a pretty valid point. Numbers do dictate some of those things and the power that maybe an athlete or a family has in that case, because of the fact that there aren't as many players. But I could tell you that administratively, like when people are for you, they're for you, unless you do something catastrophic, which this is not catastrophic.
Yes.
And if you do something catastrophic, then that's a different story. But when you don't do something catastrophic, the administration's out of.
Yeah, I didn't do anything undefendable.
No,
in reality too, Coach, I mean, think about it. Like, if you look, looking from the outside, anybody that would really kind of look at this big picture and saying, look, like, you're not even being provided the resources to handle this kind of in-house. I mean, you're literally taking a bus and to another school to work out on your own time, which, look, we don't do this for the money. We all know that. Sure. But you're not even getting a weight room stipend, like a winter stipend for it. And here you are taking time to go across town to another school, which adds its own set of, logistics and in my eyes, craziness that you have to deal with just to make it happen for those certain number of kids. And all you're asking for is communication and a little bit of support that you're putting those kids in a better situation than they could. Otherwise, like you said, like you're lifting outside, right? And that process of every day of having to do that, you only have 29 guys where every minute and every kid matters in a program like this in order to build success. You're going above and beyond to do that. Yet here it is, one quote unquote issue and okay, goodbye. Or you're not meant for this position, where I'm very confused in the fact that you laid it out to begin with when they hired you. Yet when it came down to it, when you put together the action to put the plan in place to be successful, they kind of flipped the switch on you and from, what we see. And now it's almost like, wait a minute, like this was all laid out for how it was going to go. And now all of a sudden we're flipping a switch and now it's not like that. So that's where the confusion for me really comes.
Me too, as well. It pretty much came down to, they didn't want to make that type of commitment. They didn't want the boys to feel pressured to, work out, which is, it's very, very disappointing. I was very happy there. I loved the boys. I love the town, and for only to be there 1 year and to not be able to make any changes or do anything the way I wanted to, it's really very disappointing to me. I'm very sorry that this happened.
Yeah, it's absurd. Do you feel like when you got hired, there were some that you got hired but some people were not on board with you getting hired?
No, I felt the administration was on board. I had meetings with them. I went through an extensive interview process, even though I was the defensive coordinator there for 2 years.
You were in-house already, so they knew who you were, right? Like, it's like very interesting.
But yet I went through multiple rounds of interviews with several different people. I put together a portfolio. All my references I listed, they called, checked on, they knew who I was, but
they did their due diligence.
Sure, absolutely. And I did everything that I told them I was going to do. I put together one of the best staffs in Bergen County. Brooks Alexander was a head coach at Parseghian for 20 years. He was our offensive coordinator. Brian Doyle was our line coach. He's been coaching high school football for 25 years. He spent 7 years at Don Bosco. I had Craig Nielsen volunteering for us, coming to 3 practices a week in the games for free.
And coach, and just like, yeah. And like, it's hard to get assistants to come. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, especially when you're not, look, Park Ridge, small group 1, right? Bergen County, coming off a season where you were successful, but losing a lot of guys. And we all know we've all been in the group 1 world. Dave played in a group 1 world, coached in a group 1 world. I'm from a group 1 school. Like we understand that process of ups and downs, how it goes. Those off seasons are so pivotal for the development of your players, especially if they're young. Like you said, you were starting freshmen. If nothing else, we're talking about the safety of players, right? Because you're now putting freshmen and sophomores in a game against 18-year-old seniors where they got to compete. And that conference that you're in is no, group 1 little itty bitty type of conference. I mean, there's some really, really good teams in there that can play some football. And if you're not prepared and putting the work in the off season, like you're asking the guys to do, you're going to be at a disadvantage. And then, so my whole thing is what happens in 2 years now when maybe you haven't had some success, right? And now you get ousted anyway because you've lost, yet, hey, you wouldn't even allow me to work out in the off season. So who looks bad there? So that's how I see it.
Yeah.
Well, they did you a favor from that standpoint.
Well, absolutely, Coach.
That's what would have happened. But from coach's side of it, this is his opportunity as a head coach. So
absolutely,
and having been a head coach for a long time, and I know how things can be when it's good and when it's bad. It's not, head coaching jobs are always difficult to get, period. Even if you're the best guy, for the job. And I think that, I don't know the difference between public and private from that standpoint, because I've only been a head coach at public. Obviously, Derek, you've coached at private, and there could be issues in either one of them. But
it's all the same.
The public school process sometimes on these things is literally a parent complains, or you offend somebody in the building for doing something like this, and they think you're going to take from their sport, or who knows, and then they go in that direction where they get they feel like it's a distraction, and a lot of times, I don't know, is the athletic director I'm curious what his background was, if he was a football guy at all or not.
No, he wasn't a football guy. He's been the AD for over 20 years though there. So, but he was,
and they had success with I think Curry was there for a while, right? And he had a lot of success.
Coach, you just produced a Division I lineman. Right, like you just had a Division I lineman last year. Go, and a couple years ago, I believe a state like you've had a nice little run there, right? Where and look, you're obviously vested. You were vested in the town even more so to move there and put your daughters in the school system itself. So it's not like you didn't have confidence in the school system itself to be there. I mean, this was a move where you were looking to be there for an extended period of time. You set your life up around this.
Yes, and the assistant coaches as well. We all talked when we hired. We figured this would be our last coaching job. We're going to coach here until we retire. And I was only for a year, and it's really heartbreaking. I'm very, very upset.
It is heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking thing to hear. What do you think could have been handled? And there's a lot of things, obviously, but what are some of the things that you think could have been handled better from the administration standpoint with you? Because it seems like they must have been hearing something and never said anything to you. And then all of a sudden they just dropped this, right? They just dropped this on you. What do you think they could have done better from that standpoint?
I think if they should have made me aware of what issues that they felt I was having before I got fired, come up with a plan with them, work together to solve the issues, to move forward instead of just completely blindsiding me like I did something that's undefendable. And I didn't. If you have an issue where you feel the parents feel they can't come to me, like I said, I would have had a meeting. If you feel I'm pushing the boys too hard in the weight room, say something to me. We'll come up with a plan that we both agree upon. That's what I felt should have happened.
Yeah, and ultimately, that's why we want to have you on. We want to talk about these issues that coaches have. How can we work this out, right? Because all of us want what's best for our players, what's best for our kids. We all want to put them in situations to succeed on and off the field. And if we can kind of bring light to certain situations like this, so that people look at it and can handle things a different way, ultimately that's what we're looking to do, right? We just want what's best for our players, to put them in great situations to be successful. I think that's what every coach wants, and you laid out a plan, and this is how I feel they can be successful. And we need the administrators to support us in that. We can't just flip a switch and rip the carpet out from under us and play a blame game here. I mean, and now you look at them moving forward. Now these guys don't have a coach. They don't have an off-season process. They don't know what the next move is. Where do we go from here?
Yeah. It's not only detrimental to me as a coach in my career, but it's really doing disservice to the boys. Who cared, who's willing to work, and now they have nothing.
The sad part is, I think that some administrations just don't care about that factor. They'll figure they'll just go and get another group in, and that's what they've always done, and that's what they'll do. And I think that's the sad part, especially small school football, because small school football is dying. So small school football is dying because of these kind of things. It's very hard to retain players as a whole, to get them out as a whole in Group 1.
Especially where you are, Coach, right? Because there's a lot of private school options around you. So for kids to stay at your place, you got to have a little bit more something to keep them. And sometimes that small, close-knit group of, if anything, that could have been a benefit, right? Hey, guys, we don't even have a weight room, right? But we're still working. And, we're different than other people. We're trudging across town in a bus when it's cold out and nobody else is working like us. Like, it's a rallying point. We're always looking for little intangibles or little things to get our players to want more and to kind of, get them into that. And this is something that really could have been. It's just really hard. Like Dave spoke about, like, small school football is slowly kind of dying because of all of these other tasks. And sometimes administrators would rather just push it to the side rather than build something when we all know what football especially can do for a school, in whole. I mean, we're not just talking about sports here. We're just talking about a whole vibe within a school. In my experience, when you have a good football season, the entire school year goes better, right? And I think a lot of guys would agree with that.
Sure.
Well, there are going forward, there are going to be more and more in places where there are just administrations that feel that football, if it's not under a certain process, is not worth having. And that's part of the kind of deal. Listen, to me, I mean, you don't have to comment on any of this stuff, but a little bit of this stuff, especially in North Jersey, is a little bit of a woke kind of thing where, like, we're trying to keep everybody happy, and, we don't want anybody's, we don't want any eggs to get broken. And some of that has creeped in football by nature, requires a certain type of drive. And listen, if it's not a year-round thing as far as off-season wise goes, it's at least a 3/4 of a year-round thing, football, right? And in order to have a chance I think the point that you brought up is really the most important point. If you're going to send kids out in the football field, this has always been my issue with this, when you try to step on what coaches want to do from an off-season training standpoint. if you're going to send kids out onto the football field, which is a physical game where people can get injured, okay, and do get injured. Everyone gets injured. There are people that get injured.
Every play.
Yeah, it's almost an unavoidable thing at some point in your career, So you want to make sure that you're building them up with as much armor as possible, right, on their bodies. And that's a health thing to me. To me, this is the thing that I never understood. I never got a true answer for this when there were administrations that felt the way that your administration feels. Is that, like, don't you want them to be the healthiest when they go into the football field? Wouldn't you rather have less injuries versus more injuries? If your concern is about the kids, which is you as Coach Cleary's concern about the kids, then we want to make sure they're as healthy and physical as possible in order to. That's zero to do with wins and losses. This has to do with their health on the field, right? Their health on the field, their ability to compete on the field, and that to me is where I find this disturbing. Is that we're supposed to be baffling. We're supposed to be about the kids, and here we are. Someone's trying to help them improve. And listen, if they were playing another sport, you already had said that it was kids that
that's okay. Go do your thing. Go do your thing.
We promote playing other sports. We want them to play other sports.
Exactly.
I promote
100%.
They're never going to find.
Go ahead.
About, loving these kids. I gave this team, everything I could. After we won every game, I bought the entire team breakfast. A Sunday in October, I rented out the Park Ridge Elks. I got a brunch catered from the local deli. I had all the seniors show up with their moms. Each senior got up, thanked their mom for everything they'd done to them throughout their career. I bought a bouquet of flowers for each mom. I invited Mrs. Mioli, Coach Mioli's widow, to come. She was at that as well. For breast cancer awareness, I teamed up with a local barber who I've known for years. His wife is a breast cancer survivor. He opened up the shop on a Sunday. The entire team got haircuts. We took the money and donated it to Breast Cancer Research Fund. We raised $800. I put $200 in of my own money to make it an even $1,000 donation. All the things I were doing were associated with Park Ridge, for the kids, for the town, and I was working extremely hard. And it's a shame. I got fired because I believe I cared too much and I was working too hard. And they told me that they didn't want that type of commitment, that I'd be a better fit for a bigger school or a parochial. So that's what's really hard.
That line too that's an incredible, unbelievable line. Like it's just to me, that's if anything, Coach, take that as a compliment. Like almost like, hey, Coach, you can do a lot better, right? Or something of that nature. But that's not who we are, right? As coaches, like you said, we want to do everything possible. It's not monetary. We don't do it for the money. Everybody who's in coaching or knows coaches know that you basically lose money coaching no matter what it is, unless you're at the highest levels, and then you become a non-family man basically, right? So and then when you are at that group one, you have those individual relationships and in a small town like Park Ridge where you can go to the local deli and have that conversation, and those people are willing to reach out and help those kids, or you can go to a barber and you're doing things that are bringing positivity to the school, to the team, to the town, right? There was no issues or anything like that where it was just, okay, this is the last straw. It's like this was the first straw without any, hey, okay, let's work through this. Let's try this, or maybe we can do this, or maybe it's less days or something of that nature. It was almost a done deal, cut and dry. And like Dave and you spoke before, I don't like that. There must have been things going on prior where you were kept out of the loop, and to be kept out of the loop as a head coach of a program when your name is on it is not only wrong to do to the team itself, but to you personally. After you vested everything you can into this, it's just it's scary. And I think a lot of coaches across the country do what you did and would expect that to be supported. And unfortunately, this is the situation that we're in now.
Do you feel they set you up maybe from this standpoint by not telling you and then leveraging, maybe something that might have been said, like they were like sometimes this happened, they're keeping a dossier on you, and then this and this, but nobody said anything. Do you feel like that happened, or
no?
Okay.
I don't think that happened. I think Coach Schuman, I think it just came down to they didn't want me anymore. They just didn't want me to be the coach. So, and when it comes down to, like we talked about with the support and everything else, it comes down to, do you want this person to be your coach, to work with them? And they felt I was too much, that I was asking too much, that I was pushing too hard, and they just didn't want to deal with me anymore.
And that's unfortunate because, we're constantly looking for coaches to do these things, right? Like, it's usually the other way. Hey, coach, you got to get these guys in the weight room. Or, hey, coach, like, let's do a little something for breast cancer. Or, hey, how do we get a better relationship with the players and the parents and all of that nature? I mean, here you are setting up a breakfast with moms and their sons, all those other kind of things. Sometimes administrators are pushing for that, whereas this administration is not so much. Let's go the other way. Coach, you're doing too much, right? I don't think this is the right fit. It's just very interesting because, like you said, every coach has to have.
It's like a rec mentality. It's like a recreate. Like, are we even keeping score here in the games? Like, I don't. That's the part that kind of. And I think what you said is probably true. They just decided in their head, hey, we need something to. We don't want this coach for some reason, whatever the reason is, and we need to.
We got it. Now we have our leverage.
We have something that we can go and just kind of get him out and use that. And I felt that that's happened in the past. Like, I wasn't a good fit for somebody, and they had to figure out a reason. As coaches, we'd rather you just come up to, like, to me as a man, I'd rather you just come up to me and say, I'm not the right coach for this. You don't think I'm the right coach for this program.
Right.
And that's the way, we see it. It's not that you're not a great coach or anything like that. We don't see you as the right coach for this program.
For this,
and, I'd rather people just come up and say that, you know what I mean? Even if I don't like it, then make up something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And a lot of times,
and they trump up a charge. They trump up a charge so you don't, so you can't, they can't get sued. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And a lot of times you see this when administration, they change, right? Like, oh, this isn't the guy that I hired, or this isn't my guy, right? So now, okay, hey,
that didn't seem to be the case. Coach said that didn't seem to be the case. He said
that's what I'm saying. Like that's sometimes because, I mean, we've dealt with that, right? Where we were hired by one person, and then all of a sudden somebody else comes in, and it's not a good relationship, or it's not a good fit. And it's not even when they look at it and say, hey, this guy fits good with the kids and the program, but we as administrators don't like what he's doing, right? So sometimes it's a little bit of that.
Say this, and you've heard me say this when I was at Powell Park, Leone, and I just got into the Hall of Fame for Powell Park as a coach.
Yes, because none of those administrators are there anymore, brother.
Well, what's funny is that me and Derek laugh about that, because obviously we built a great program, but there were two sides, because it was a co-op, and the Leonia side really, I don't think they ever wanted me, and the Powell Park side did want me. And but the first few years where we were pretty bad and building it up, there were, I'd be in that office at Leonia every other month about something, but Powell Park wanted me there, and that's where practice was, right? They had it at Powell Park, and then we started winning and going, we were on a roll, so obviously we weren't going to get rid of the coach at that point. And then, but eventually they worked the situation where we had to mutually part ways, because they were constantly coming up with things, and it's just
toxic. It's a toxic atmosphere for everybody.
It was a 7. Yeah, it was toxic.
The job's hard enough without them giving roadblocks to you. The job is hard.
It's a great point, Coach. It's a great point.
And they're putting up roadblocks for everything you're trying to do. It's exhausting. And you sit to yourself, and what am I doing? Why am I doing this?
Right. Because then you have to look at it for you personally, right? Like you're going home, you feeling a certain type of way. Now your poor family has to deal with it, your wife, your daughters, right? Meanwhile, here we are, and we sacrifice a lot of our own time with our own families to basically have 60 sons, 30 other sons on top of whatever else we're doing. And now our families and our lives personally are being affected. At that point, like, look, I get it. Right. And it's not the situation. It's not how we want it to go down. But I need to look at who I am. I mean, look, even Urban Meyer had to get out of the game because he was having heart palpitations. Right. Yeah. Like you're talking about, like, that stuff matters. Right. Where life is just too short. And ultimately, we want what's best for all of these kids. And we feel like we can do it the best. But when it comes down to us personally, sometimes we really have to take a step back and look at it and be like, you know what? Maybe this is one of the greatest things that ever happened.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's and it's hard. It's hard at times, because you feel
hell yeah. You work your whole life for this opportunity to be a head coach.
Yes,
I think personally, it's the personal thing that's the hardest thing. Is that they try to make you feel like you did something wrong when in actuality you did absolutely nothing wrong. It was their own kind of priorities that creeped in, and their priorities were X, or they don't. Either they didn't want you anymore for whatever reason it was, or they looking for a different type of person, or they know somebody that they're going to bring in. This happens
usually how it works, right?
These things happen all the time, and it's the truth is it took me a long time to realize because I was a head coach from the time I was young, and I used to take it very personally when I was 31, 32. And as I got older, Derek would laugh at it like he was like, you just take these things and like that was when I was at RBR. I just take it in stride. Like I got suspended for a week at RBR for really a nonsense thing, and eventually I ended up leaving there, but for a nonsense thing. But the second they suspended me, Derek walked with me through the parking lot on my way out as I talked to him about what he's going to have to do to run the program. And he wanted answers. I said, I'll give you answers later. But the most important thing is that we have a plan for these kids. You know what I mean?
Right.
Going forward. And this was during COVID, which was, in my opinion, the most
whole nother craziness, right? Just add more fuel to the fire.
So I'm walking out and we're having this conversation. And Derek really wanted to know what the heck happened in this meeting. And I said, most important thing is like, what you're going to do. Run the program. This is what if you need me to email you practice plan, whatever, and obviously Derek's been around a long time, so he was able to have a handle on it. I said, you're in charge, and it's your decisions until I come back. So because there's nothing I can do. And I helped them any way I could. But those are the kind of things.
It was a wild Monday, Coach. I'll tell you that much.
But those are the kind of things that happened. So, but he was, I think, very surprised at how I just kind of matter-of-factly just was like, but when you coach long enough and you start to get not surprised by some of these things, even though it is wrong. So that's the crazy part, right? It's wrong.
Yeah, we're almost
it's wrong,
right?
That these things get done to coaches. And, Benji Wimberly had a huge push a few years ago that he wanted to, get multi-year contracts to coaches to try to help them prevent the situation that you're having right now.
Protect us.
To protect you. Yeah. But, it's a very difficult thing to get done. And the only states that are really kind of doing it to an extent, maybe like Texas and Georgia, where the guys are like basically full-time, or South Carolina too, where they're full-time coaches and maybe they teach a couple of classes, but they're really coaches. And there it's most usually losing and winning, right? That they're getting canned for, which I always say as like a coach, if you want to can me because I'm losing more than I'm, just tell me, hey, you didn't win.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, dude. Like, you have more losses than wins. Goodbye, right? Like, I would rather it be cut and dry like that than have politics play more of a role in it. And unfortunately, politics play a role in it, right? And I don't think it's just New Jersey or just this place. I think coaches, and I don't think it's just football. I think it's all sports in general. And then people wonder why no one wants to coach. There's, you know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of positives other than us just doing what we do and our intrinsic type of, because it sure as hell isn't monetary. It's not like we get more money if we win more, or it's not like we get more money the more kids we send to college, or, how many of them come back with it and talk to us 5 years later when, they're going into the police academy or they're running a successful business.
Absolutely.
And, those people don't see that, those thank yous, and how many parents, Coach, thank you so much. My son has matured. He's doing his own laundry now. Like little things like that. These guys don't understand how much control. So many people can point back to, this coach changed my life. And maybe not at the time, right? But down the road, everyone has that coach. And unfortunately, sometimes it's bad, right? Because sometimes it's a negative. But when you see positive things and then that change because of other dynamics around it, you really feel bad for the kids themselves, right? That have vested that time and that work and that trust that you've gained with those players in a short amount of time to now have it ripped out from under you. It's unfortunate for them.
Yes.
Football is
really, in the long run, I feel really bad for the kids of Park Ridge. I do. I was working very hard on that. That's all I did was think about them and which way I can make the program better. And the message that's going out into the community is, we don't take football as being very important. We don't want you to
100%. And if nothing else, Coach, now if I'm an eighth grader in Park Ridge, I got to look elsewhere. So now you really, and this is all speculation of things that I've seen in the past, right? Like we've seen things happen behind closed doors of like, hey, if we make the program look bad enough, we can kill it. And now we don't have to pay money to do it, right? So maybe there's a little bit of that. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But like there's so many other things that we'll never know. And to be honest, like I'd rather not know.
I don't know that that's the case. What I do think is what Coach maybe said earlier is that they are looking for someone to come in and just operate.
Be a yes man.
Maybe it's not even a yes man, but not like, hey, the kids show up in July and start working out, or June and work it out, and that's when football begins. And
it seems like record doesn't even matter, Coach.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate thing, because your coach comes there as someone who's driven, right? And has had success. He's been in programs that have been very successful. And
he knows the path to success. He's been around some of the greatest. Coach, your coaching tree, when you just reeled off those names, and Dave, you can account to it too. Those are phenomenal names. You've coached under some guys that have been uber successful in the state with uber successful players, right? And not just seasons, winnings and losses. Like we're talking over a span of time, guys that have been at programs for a long time. Mike Carter's been at Bloomfield since I think he was born, right? Like, I mean, a phenomenal guy runs a program. Like you've learned how to do it, right? From successful people, you're setting the model up, and now that's not how we want it to go.
Correct.
Yeah,
well, gentlemen, thank you for your time. I thought this is a really great talk. Unfortunately, I do have to teach. Good
for you. At least you're in a different district where that ain't getting hell. Hell, you're good, Coach. Go teach.
And tell Brooks I said hello. Tell Brooks
I said hello. It was really nice talking to you, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach. Hope it all works out. If you need anything, take care. Man.
Interesting. Nice guy. So
that's the other part, dude. Like, not all of us are bad guys.
As a guy who's been through these scenarios,
I know and that's why, Dave. Like when he said he wanted to come on, I said, man, Dave is gonna resonate with this so much. I hope it doesn't, look, you've been through it. You survived it, right?
I can tell you what it is. I can tell you. Look. So to me, and I look, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe they didn't like him as a coach for whatever reason. We don't know any of that stuff. So, in all fairness to the administration, we don't know anything from their side.
100%. We're not throwing them under the bus either. You know what I mean? Like they obviously have reasons or whatever. It's just
I don't know. But I don't know. It does seem like what he said. They didn't want him as the coach for whatever reason. They created something, and I found a reason. They found the reason, and I've been through that. And
it didn't matter what he did; they were going to find something.
And the other point I think is hard for administrations to understand with football per se, and maybe other sports too, but football in particular, is that most players that are in football, when they're in the grind of football, don't appreciate what it does for them years later.
Correct.
And it's unique. It's unique to football, and I don't think any other sport really has this, because basketball's fun. You shoot a basketball. Like, I know it's hard work and everything,
but you can go do it after high school as well. You know what I'm saying? You can go join a men's league. You can go do all that. Football ends.
Yeah, but I think it's also the grind of football that can create for players in the moment and their families that it's a lot, right? This is a lot.
Yeah.
But you, and I could just tell you from the kids that I've coached, not all of them, but a lot of them have come back to me and said, hey, I didn't really understand at the time what you were doing, but now I really understand.
And that's why I said what I said, right? Like, because you get those emails 5 years down the road, or when you get that invite to one of your former players' weddings, right? Or just that text message, hey, coach, I'm back in town from school, would love to catch up. Like, they are so appreciative, right? And like I said, it might not be, and it doesn't, like, guys playing at the next level, you're affecting their lives, like, in some way, shape, or form. And even if they don't understand it at the moment, because they can't grasp it, they got so many other things going on and whatever, somewhere down the road, they look back and they say, damn, Coach Schuman really pushed me, and, like, I am so much of a better person for that.
You know what I think about? I think about the school shooter. Okay, the girl who goes and shoots up this Christian school, and I don't know what her issue was, or her, why she lost it, and she takes other people's lives. It's completely inexcusable. It's a tragedy. But as a whole, I feel like, why do we penalize people that are investing in kids? Because there isn't enough people investing in kids. Okay. And we constantly want to penalize the people that are, whether they're volunteering, whether they're paid, the ones that are trying to invest in kids, because there's a couple of bad apples here and there. And that's basically what we keep doing, is we're working towards the lowest common denominator instead of the ones that are doing a great job. And we're thinking that that's going to go negative. There are bad apples in anything you do. There are bad coaches. There are bad administrators. There are bad parents. There's bad in everything. Okay. Bad teachers, bad people in business, good. But the overall majority of them are probably trying to do the right thing. Okay. So we can't work to the lowest common denominator. We have to pluck the bad apples out. Okay.
Yep.
And not penalize ones that are good apples, but they're pushing the envelope because we don't like it. And listen, I don't know what the case is here in this situation. Coach seems like a genuine guy, a really good guy.
Right.
But I think that's becoming in football in New Jersey. That's part of them. Listen, when me and you talk about, or you and I don't know how you say it, but when we talk about New Jersey in football, and when kids are like, how come I'm not getting recruited? Blah, 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 blah. Well, it's hard if you don't have coaches that can push you to the next level. It's hard to get good enough to compete with the South and the Midwest. Period.
Right. We're already at a disadvantage because of geographically where we are and how our system works. We just had Coach Bell on talking about, the availability to just go outside and work, right? Or 7-on-7 clubs, or how much interaction they can have with their players, where, the off season, there's no rules about you can't talk to this guy or work with this guy, or they have spring ball. We're already at a disadvantage. And now you have guys that are going above and beyond, not getting, and look, not getting paid, right? Like, coaches in other places get paid year round to do it. They get separate stipends for certain things. This guy's going out of his way. Dave, he's getting on a bus, going to a different school to work out. The logistics of that itself, right, of the paperwork for a public school to have to do that and allow that, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like they had 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? Like, okay, we want them to be doing something,
and a lot of times they do. in the like I've told you, the hardest.
But you just had enough of that pushback from parents, and I don't want to deal with all this stuff. We got to get rid of this guy.
The hardest years are the first 2 years. Okay, the first 2 years.
People hate change.
They all hate change. You got to get through the change time period. You experienced it at Bienni. Okay. The change, if you can't get through the change time period, which is very hard, the first 2 years, especially if you're rebuilding or something.
Yep.
The first 2 years of your job as a coach is when they make a decision to go forward long term or not. And I feel like that happens a lot where they cut the cord if they don't feel like you're the fit.
Absolutely.
And it could have zero to do. A lot of times, there's zero to do with wins and losses. It has to do with whatever's going on in their own heads as far as what's a fit or not. And that's the hardest part for a coach, especially in football, because you invest all your time and resources into it, and then you're kind of left hanging in the wind.
Well, especially guys like us that literally, like I said, like you sacrifice your own family time to be around this and be successful with it because, you know, we're just those people that are all in no matter what we do and want things to be uber successful. And now, like, rather than reward that type of individual, now you're almost shunning that type of individual. And in a society where you're creating a sense of mediocrity is okay. Right. And hey, as long as we're okay and there's no issues, we don't care what the wins and losses are. And I don't know if that's a factor in anything.
I don't know if that's a factor.
You know, but it's also when you get a guy that's willing to literally put the kids first, right? And all of those types of things, it's just really hard to see this be the outcome when here you are thinking you're doing everything right and you're almost doing more than you should be, right? But you're still willing to do it. And now this is the type of negative consequence that comes from it. Like, it's just unfortunate.
You really have to have an AD that has your back.
No, yep. And they're willing to go through it with you.
They're willing to go through it with you. And there's not a lot of guys that are willing to do that. And they could be, and listen, some of these ADs could be guys that are around forever. Like, to me, around forever as an AD just means you figured out how to politically navigate the system. It doesn't mean that you're the greatest AD. Some are.
Right.
Some
it just means that you can go back and forth and you can play the game.
Yes. So that some of those guys have people's backs. Some of them don't. But, you know, it's very hard for
and especially for you because you've been through it where you've taken over programs where a lot of change was needed in order to get successful, right? I mean, you're talking about taking a program, moving that to a JV status for a year or two before you could build it back up, right? It's not like you took over a program. I mean, we were fortunate at RBR to take over a program and be successful right away, which sometimes, you know, creates a false sense of reality for people, you know, and like they expect that expectation is, you know, score 50 a game like we did for the very first 2 games. And now it's like, oh, when you don't score 50, well, what happened? It's like, well, that's not reality, right? Like this is something and it's a process to build. And now with the immediate, you know, the society that we're living in where everything is immediate and we need it now, the whole trusting of the process and we need time to build and you got to get that freshman class through that senior year in order to really see the fruits of the labor within the program itself, you know. That's not being allowed anymore because everybody's being pressured to win right now. And there's just so much more than wins and losses to this game and sports and just high school in general, right? Where that experience is something people take with them forever, right? No matter what. And then football is very different in the fact that, like I said previously, it ends. You don't go play pickup football. You know, for majority of these kids, the last time they wear a helmet is senior year, December, hopefully for your team. And then those memories are what they are. And for these guys to not have that positivity and those things, it's unfortunate because football is different in that retrospect. You're practicing way more than you're playing games. Right? You're not 2-3 games a week where you get to enjoy that. You only have max 14 games a year, right? If you're really, really good. And it's unfortunate. You're muted.
It is unfortunate. I think he did a great job of explaining kind of the situation. And I think that, as a whole, it's it's always a tough thing. It's like you see it all the way through. Everybody has an opinion on a coach. You watch the NFL. I have an opinion on the Giants. You might have an opinion on the Giants.
Right.
The first inclination is this coach isn't good, which may when
who knows?
Yeah. You don't
Again,
know.
nobody knows all that behind the scenes stuff. Nobody's, even for an age where we can get most of the information that we want from social media about whatever, there are still things that go on behind closed doors that some people are so unaware of, or just the dynamics of football in general and the structure and the hierarchy and all of these other things. There's so much more to building a successful team than just what people see or what they can search or what they read. And then ultimately everybody's going to have their own opinions. And that's kind of like the stage that I'm glad we gave him that opportunity to kind of speak on everything and talk about everything. I mean, and I think he did a phenomenal job in terms of, he could have come on here and blasted everything about Park Ridge and aired dirty laundry or whatever. If there is, who knows? But he could have done it in that way. But even in a negative spot like that, he still took a positive viewpoint on everything in terms of, look, I just wanted what was best for the kids, and that type of route, which kind of shows you who he is as a person. And, coaches need to be more of that, right? Not about me, all about everybody. You've heard me say it 1,000 times. When we win, it's all because of the kids and the assistant coaches and everybody else. When we lose, it's because me. Like, I did the bad job. I did something like that. That's how I look at things. And that's kind of, why we got into this, is to build these kids up on and off the field and see them grow and mature and become successful, whether it's football or not. But it's just such a great game where there's so many positive things and so much more than the wins and the losses, that build these guys, especially as a high school,
Right.
when you're really at that age where things play a role in who you become as a man or it's just really tough. At the same time, it's a learning experience for everybody, right? Like, they kind of see the nuts and bolts of how the world works. Sometimes it's not fair. Life's hard. Get a helmet.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Great podcast. It was great getting him on. Good get. When's next? What do we got next?
Right now we don't have anything really scheduled, but I'm working on a couple things. We're going to try and get a couple in before Christmas, the Christmas break. And then obviously over the Christmas break, we get an opportunity to get a lot of guys because, they're not really working. So,
Yeah. Okay, cool.
But listen, good stuff always.
All right.